welcome back. I'd like to say thank you for the recent traction. Got another donation. Let me know in the donation if you don't want me to say thanks by name, but I guess it's okay. First name, Catherine. Thank you so much. Catherine bought me a few coffees, and so because she's bought me some caffeine, I'm all hooked up and ready to go today. I'll firstly just say, well, once again, thanks for the support, everyone. Let's keep it rolling. The reason why, one of the main reasons why I want to do more, I'll just say, is because shit's gotten pretty real. Things have gotten pretty real. 5 years ago, me and my friends were talking about overreaches of government power and all the things that are going to happen, and it hadn't really hit home yet, so it was a little bit pie in the sky, and it was easy to go, oh, you're a bit out there, you're a bit of a free thinker, aren't you, buddy? You're a bit of a conspiracy theorist. But let's be real, people. These days, you can send your kids to school, and the narcissistic little weird kids who are dressing up as the opposite gender could get your kids in trouble. They could get the teachers fired, and that's, once again, it's not why are the oddballs oddballing, it's why is the power structure promoting it and funding it and empowering it. So all these social issues are there as well. Then you throw COVID, lockdowns, small business destroying, gutting the middle class. Things are getting real, people, and they're getting real very quickly. So that is one of the main reasons why I've decided to do more, because if good people don't push back, then one of the in a lot of ways, the greatest civilization this planet has ever seen will fade off into the darkness because nobody cared anymore and nobody had even the slightest amount of spine. And I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, you know what, I actually knew exactly what was happening the whole time, but I didn't really do anything because I couldn't really be cared. The sports ball was still on and I had my calories and entertainment. I had my bread and circuses, so I just kept my head down and let it all go down the drain and suck shit for my kids and their kids. I don't want to be like that, and I don't want you to be like that. So things are getting real. I'm putting myself out there. Help me out, people. Help me keep going. I've got a buddy of mine who is a very, very intelligent guy, an absolute whiz on the Google Scholar. The sort of buddy that got the all expenses paid scholarship to the private school kind of dude. Anyway, he would like to help me out with some research so that we can get even more legit. We can pull out all the inconvenient facts that the power structure doesn't want you to know. But as usual, as with anything else, the more I get coming in, the more I can put into it and the larger it can be. So help me out. But for today, we're going to keep on our theme of outing the liars. We're going to keep exposing the pointy-nosed Pinocchios and how they do it. Now, the topic for today's technique of lying, lying is the umbrella term, but we just want all the little techniques to be very clear on how the thought process behind it, how they go about it, and why it's so effective. So today's topic, feelings over facts. Lying with feelings over facts. Now I'll tell you a little story. This is an interesting time in my life, but a while ago, I'm happily married now to an amazing woman, and I'm doing really well in that department, let's just say. But I did for about 4 years on and off date a Jewish girl. Now, that is the source of many an interesting story. I will tell you that much. If you want to hear more about that and what I learned being part of a Jewish family for 4 years, I'm happy to talk about that. But once again, support me and I will open up all the secrets. But one of her brothers was studying, I think actually even vaccinology. No, Yeah, I think so. This is weird. This is years ago, but I think he was doing something with vaccines. Anyway, he was a scientist. And I explained a little incident I had years ago where I caused a bit of drama by talking about race and IQ. And this is back when I didn't quite fully appreciate the nature of feelings over facts and how many people operate like that. But I did bring up at the table once with this Jewish family that, you know, I'd had a run-in with some people talking about race and IQ, and I said, and it's crazy. There's this book. I've got the book, The Bell Curve, Charles Murray, and a couple of Richard Lynn books. I think IQ and The Wealth of Nations. And the guy's a scientist, right? He's a scientist, and I said, could you believe it? Like, who would have thought? You know? And he looked at me infuriated and he said, you're calling them inferior. And, you know, technically that's not true. I mean, if you want to look at IQ, that's one metric, but superior and inferior are value judgments. You know, you'd have to ask, inferior at what? You know, is an African 100-meter sprinter superior to a white guy? Well, at the act of 100-meter sprinting, probably, yeah, he probably is superior at that, but that is a specific criteria. It's not a blanket moral judgment. And so I actually brought it up because I would have credited this guy who was actually studying science to understand more the nature of distinction between facts and feelings. But alas, I was mistaken. Now you see this all the time. X is true. Well, you're calling X inferior. Or they say, why do you hate X? Well, you go, well, this is true. Why are you spreading hate? This equivalence, there's just interchangeability between a statement of fact, which can be true or false, logical, illogical, internally consistent, or not internally consistent, but to rip that out of the topic of conversation and insert your feelings or to psychologize the other person and say, well, you just must have hate. If I say, this tree has green leaves, well, why do you hate that tree? You see, that doesn't logically follow. That's not a given. And it's if you're trying to investigate the nature of things, it's really logical and a very stupid thing to do. It's not necessarily, I'll just put a little caveat here, it's not necessarily a lie in the sense that you can substitute a fact for your feeling or a moral judgment or an emotive basis or an emotion about it. That it's a lie in the sense that you can't logically do that. But it may not be a lie in the fact that the person doing it is lying. They might not know any better, and they might have a limited capacity to understand the difference. So it may not necessarily be a conscious lie, but for the purpose of determining truth, it is a falsehood, it is a manipulation, it is a reframing. So we're going to put it in the lying camp anyway. It's another way of lying. But even if somebody can't tell the difference, some people can't tell the difference between, feels and reals, facts and feelings. A lot of people can, but they know that other people can't, so they use it as a strategy of lying. So if you don't like the facts, like say, just to pick an example, if we're coming from the basis of self-interest and you say to a politician, well, you say we're all in it together with these COVID lockdowns, yet you just gave yourself a pay rise. You are very clearly pointing out an uncomfortable truth for that politician. And so as a strategy, as a way to get what they want for themselves, they might say, Well, yeah, the thought process that happens instantaneously and subconsciously on an intuitive level might be something like, if I had to spell out the intuitions, it might be something like, okay, I can't afford for people to hear that point because it's going to lead to a negative outcome for me. It's going to not have me get what I want, which is money. So instead of engaging the point, I'm just going to assert that the other person must hate politicians and they're spreading hate and misinformation. And so you might say, if we're all in it together, why are you getting pay rises while small business is suffering? And they say, why are you spreading hate? Why do you hate politicians? I don't think this particular example would work with politicians because I think most people hate politicians. But you get a sympathetic group and you say X fact about this sympathetic group, and the person who is profiting from that sympathetic group, on an intuitive level, once again might go, wow, I can't afford for this information to be heard because I'm going to lose money if it is, and people comprehend what it means. So as a method of lying in the moment, I just say, well, you just hate that group. So I'm going to get a fact and I'm going to substitute it with a feeling, and I'm going to assert the other person is working from hate, not a systematic logical thought process, but they're just expressing hate. You see the technique of lying. And once again, there's a line to be drawn, because a lot of people who are susceptible to this probably don't realize their brain may be wired in such a way that they are, without significant training and repetition, without that they are unable to, or have a very hard time distinguishing between the idea that something may be true or their emotions about it. This ties into, empathizing versus systematizing brains. Very loosely, feminine and male typed brains. If you've got a systematic brain, look, examples of a systematic brain are, I have a car and I can look at the car, and in my mind I can imagine a schematic, and I can do a 3D model in my head of all the little interconnected bits. I can go, this air intake's going there, the fuel's going here, I can imagine the pistons going up and down, I can do a mental construct of how this car's put together and how all the parts interconnect. That is systematizing. And also too, complex mathematics, like if A then B, A plus B, if 2 plus 2 equals 4, then 2 plus 4 must equal 8, that sort of thing. It's logic. The systems are internally consistent, and you can pick out the patterns. There's pattern recognition, there's conceptualizing systems, there's breaking things down. Whereas an empathetic brained person is much less, I'm not going to say able to do that, but it's much less their natural state. Their natural state is reading the emotions of other people. And look, in the systematic type camp, that's where you get this kind of like genius, oddball, middle-aged guy, right? He's this sort of guy with this long hippie hair, and he walks around in dirty sweatpants and a pair of Crocs or something, and he's kind of overweight, and he just looks like a homeless person, but he goes home and he's building an aeroplane in his garage or whatever. I'm sure you can imagine that type of person, where systematically brilliant, socially, but just not aware of what they're signaling. They're socially not aware. Right? And I keep saying this in these videos. That's why women look at men and go, well, they do all these amazing things, but they're kind of dumb, because in the realm of emotions and in the social world that the feminine cognitions live in, the high systematizers have a natural inability, I guess, to kind of get that. Whereas at the other side of things, get someone who is really good at reading faces, expressing faces. They live in a social world. This would be a lot of creatives, a lot of musicians or actors. Go and ask an actor to take apart a car and put it together again. I would venture to say that in general, they're going to be more empathetic brained, and they're going to have a hard time doing that. So once again, the difference between empathetic brains and systematic brains. And look, this is a spectrum, right? It's not like you are one or the other. There's going to be a range. A lot of people are going to be a bit of both. I think a lot of people are kind of going to be 70-30 one way or 80-20 one way or the other. Some people are, closer to the middle, but generally, you're going to find that more masculine brain thing is more kind of systematic and less social, whereas the more empathetic brain is going to be more social and less systematic. But one of the things I think which comes into play with the empathetic brains is anthropomorphization. If you anthropomorphize something, it means you place a human consciousness on things that don't really exist there. I'm actually just going to look up this definition because I use this word, anthropomorphic, but I'm pretty sure that with a quick Google I'll get a better definition. Well, it just says the definition, having human characteristics, but in practice, was it David Shermer, the skeptics guy? He talked about ancient humans anthropomorphizing a phenomenon. So you hear a rustle in the bushes. Is it just the wind? Now, the wind is not a conscious force. It's not a conscious mind doing something with meaning behind it. It's just a system. It's a system of moving, of air pressures and air moving, and you know what wind is, of course. But the point is, if you go, there's someone in the bushes or something's doing something in the bushes there, then you're anthropomorphizing that phenomenon. You're overlaying a mind where there is none. Okay? And I think that this is going to go hand in hand with overlaying a value judgment where there necessarily is none, where there isn't necessarily one. You see what I mean? So the empathetic brain, the social brain, is better at reading faces and lives in a social world, and so I think it's fair to say that a higher tendency to anthropomorphize a phenomenon. And with that anthropomorphization is going to come overlaying a value judgment over a phenomenon or over a fact. You see what I'm saying? So your systematic brain person might be like X fact, B fact, C fact, but be completely unaware of how the other human minds around them, how the other social brains around them are going to interpret that emotionally. But in the reciprocal, the social brains are going to hear a fact and go, yeah, but I don't like it. That sounds bad to me. Why are you spreading hate? The only reason you would say that is because you hate that person or the people involved or this idea or whatever, because the systematizers are more socially blind, but the social brains are more system blind. It probably doesn't occur to them why the fact is important, because they're probably more system blind and probably don't make the connections between the fact and the reasons why you think that fact is important or how it relates to a bigger issue. You see? So systematizers and empathizers, systematic brains, empathetic brains, social brains, anthropomorphizing, overlaying a human mind and therefore possibly overlaying human value judgments on top of phenomena, on top of facts, on top of things that aren't value judgments. So once again, we'll go back to the two camps. There are people, just like the scientist guy whose sister I was dating. I say, look at the evidence of this. And he said, well, you're saying they are inferior. I'm like, I'm not saying any such thing. I'm saying it's a fact. You know what I mean? If I say it's cloudy today and you say, why do you hate clouds as opposed to blue skies? I'm like, I never literally said that at all. I'm just saying it's cloudy today. Maybe I shouldn't wear sunscreen or something, like fact. And we can deduce something from that fact that might be useful, but it doesn't mean I hate the clouds. You know what I mean? This is a massive trip up for a lot of people, and it is a extremely effective political tool. Extremely effective tool for political lying. Because there are so many social-brained people who struggle with systems, and it's probably a bit of a trade-off. The higher the emotionality of the fact, probably the harder it is to separate the fact from the feels. You know what I mean? Like if you say, okay, well, that car uses this amount of fuel per 100 kilometers and that car uses that amount of fuel, and everyone's like, well, okay, yeah, what, no big deal. Like there's no emotional response that's going to cloud the judgment in there. Whereas you bust in with, demographic facts in an environment where people have been so repetitiously programmed to have certain ideas already and certain emotional reactions already and emotional templates on these ideas already, then the fact runs up against huge emotional resistance. So we'll try and keep this on a bit shorter, but this is the technique. One technique of lying today is feelings over facts. That's going to be the title. Feels over facts. And it's a technique of lying. A lot of people have a limited ability to put facts over feels, but there are a lot of people, especially in politics and in power, who know that there are significant portions of the population who struggle to put facts over feels, and so they play on that. They play on that to discredit their opponents for the sake of manipulating the population to get what they want. And so what I want you to do is to see through it. And like with a lot of these things, the more you can see it, the less you can be manipulated by it. And you just need to double down. I mean, if you're in a situation where it really matters, you don't really have to engage any of this stuff, because what I want from you is to understand this, not necessarily do anything about it, but I want these things to have less effect on other people. I'm not saying you necessarily have to go and debate people and whatever, but try and shove facts down their throat. But I'm happy if you can listen to this and you can take this on board and just start to see with your own two eyes the difference between facts and feelings, and start reading. Is this person cluelessly systematizing, or is this person illogically empathizing? You know what I mean? You get a huge difference there. Remember, these guys, these work in their garage, genius, dorky guys who are oblivious to what they're signaling, but their systematic brains are cranking away doing great stuff. But then the other side of things is the social butterfly, the person that can navigate other people and their emotions seamlessly, but can't read a map. Okay? Because to read a map or whatever successfully, you're going to have to do a mental construct and create a bit of a 3D image and read it in your head. So it's more of a systematic thing, right? And that's why if you think about reading the maps, it does have a lot of overlap between men and women. But, as with all things, there are exceptions to the rule, but in a lot of ways the exceptions prove the rule. Once again, just back to the issue of men and women, this is not a value judgment on men or women. It's the ultimate answer with men and women is that we are different but complementary. We have a division of labor. We are created or evolved, whatever you like, to do different jobs to help each other so that we're both better off for it. It's not a value judgment, but it is a phenomenon that you can see, and I want to help you see that. We're going to do repetition on these methods of lying so that you can see them, because I want you to be less manipulatable. Manipulatable? I've got to crack open my dictionary before I do a chat. But no, look, I really just get hyped up on all the caffeine that you guys so graciously donate to me, and then we just go for it. And if you have a problem with one of my sentence structures, I suggest looking back at my previous video, which is all about not getting bogged down in irrelevant details and staying on point, addressing the actual point of what I'm saying. So, look, facts over feels, or feelings over facts. That's the difference. That's the difference. Can you separate these things? Can you appreciate them in different ways? But the method of lying, the method of manipulating the population for fun and profit, is to insert value judgments, moral judgments, your feelings, and assert the feelings of others, i.e. you're spreading hate, to do those things in place of addressing a fact. Alright, so we'll leave it there. Thanks so much again. Check below, join my Telegram. We're going to be doing a lot more. Let me know if you want something from me. Let me know if you've got any feedback. Don't be a douche about it. Can't be bothered. But any constructive criticism, happy to hear. If there's any topics you want covered, please help me out. I speak better when I'm high on caffeine, so buy me a coffee. The link will be below. Thanks so much to my couple of supporters so far. I've also got some crypto links below. Happy to take some crypto as a donation as well. But I'll leave you with that one. Today's method of lying is to insert feelings instead of facts. Feels over facts. See it and be free from it.